Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I've got some good news. This is one of those random things that just kind of popped into my head when I woke up the other morning. I think it was Monday morning or even Tuesday morning. And it was Monday morning. See, all the days are blurring together. And I just had the idea to throw together a children's book. Not sure why. It just kind of hit me like a freight train. Like, you can do this. It would be easy to do. Go ahead and do it. So I did. And it's done. It's in paperback and it's in hardback, and it should be in Kindle here very shortly, probably within the next 24 to 48 hours. Assuming, again, that all of these book releases will be okay regarding these versions of this book. And that Amazon's publishing company will allow it, because it's kind of funny and a bit controversial, I think, certainly for the unknowledgeable. But it's titled, I'm a Conspiracy Theorist, a children's book by Dr. Brooks. And again, it's about 40 some odd pages long in paperback. It's a big paperback. It's about whatever it is, 8.5 inches by 11 inches. And and at the very end, it's got QR codes that take you to particular websites and short clips on Rumble and BitChute, and all the way to longer documentaries on Rumble and BitChute. But it's basically my dog and I going on adventures and laughing about particular things that exist in the world, and how, of course, people call them conspiracy theories when in fact they're just facts. And there you go. So it's a funny book. It's not, it's for kids, but it's really for adults too, to be honest. And yeah, I just wanted to make mention of that. If you're interested, you can bounce over and pick one up if the time allows for it. Certainly, again, if Amazon approves it. They may not, but whatever. It was fun building it anyway, and it took me a few days. And I went down those rabbit holes again, and certainly the whole rabbit hole of creating a book, it takes a lot of time. But I illustrated it using a great deal of ChatGPT, which was kind of interesting, to say the least, and an educational experience. You can really see the flaws with it, but also the hilarious creativity with it as well. I mean, you can flat out give it something and say, okay, here's the picture that I want for a children's book, here's the text that I want to include. And I wrote the whole thing. And the images, again, were in my mind, so I gave it an image idea, and then I had the text already written out, so I gave it the text, and then it produced it. And it produced some errors from time to time. But other than that, it was fun to make, and it's a funny book, I think. So it would basically take a robot to not laugh at it. I'll put it that way. But anyway, with that said, any proceeds of that book, again, would go straight back into the show, straight back into my website, and that's typically how it works. The paperback, unfortunately, is about $14.95, I think, $14.95. The Kindle, of course, will be less than $10. That's usually the way that goes. And sadly, the hardback, because it's a hardback book, is $25. So again, you don't have to buy it. I'm a terrible salesman, and I certainly don't advertise very well, because I'm sitting here saying, you don't have to buy it, whatever. But it's a book title that doesn't exist for a children's book, which I think is hilarious. And again, that was kind of the premise for doing it also. But again, I started building it, and I thought, well, I'll add my dog, and the two of us will go on adventures, and we'll make it funny and make it informative, and somebody will read it, even an adult who is probably asleep. And, they might get a laugh and then actually ask themselves some questions about particular things. And then again, like I said, at the end, I put QR codes to particular clips and documentaries on BitChute and Rumble, and, people can expand their thinking if they want to. So, yeah, just wanted to let you know about that. And that's kind of why I haven't been making more videos this week as of late, but it's been consuming my days and my time, but it was fun to do. And it's, again, like I said, it's a funny book. I still open it up from time to time on my computer and start reading some pages and just start laughing. So anyway, just wanted to let you know about that. Okay, now, speaking of a non-laughing matter, no segue here, let me jump to this. I wouldn't, again, spend a great deal of time on this person, or, again, individuals per se. Certainly, people of this nature, but Erica Kirk is insane. This woman is demonic. I'm sorry. I'm just going to flat out say it. She's demonic. She has a look in her face that is beyond disgusting. This woman has taken in over $10 million for a so-called husband, which wasn't her husband, who isn't dead, and is grifting like nobody's business. And she's made her way now to Fox News, and she's been bouncing around all the Fox News channels and shows, rather. And she was even hosting or co-hosting The Five at 5 o'clock. She was on Outnumbered with Harris Faulkner, and I want to play a clip of her right now. It's about 2 minutes long, of her basically commenting on Candace Owens and how Candace Owens is asking questions about the investigation and the entire incident. Again, Candace Owens keeps saying that Charlie Kirk's dead. Joke's on her. He isn't. It was obviously fake. That's clearly the case. And yeah, so here's Erica Kirk. Again, if you're a widowed woman and your husband were really shot in the throat on video, again, on video, seemingly real to a naked eye, with people then just kind of strolling about and no real crime scene and paving over the crime scene and the whole thing. Would you actually be making the rounds on cable news channels? Is that what you would be doing? Is that what a real widow would be doing? Or is that what a criminal does in order to trick people into believing that the thing that they are supporting actually happened when in fact it didn't? Don't know if that explanation was clear, but she's a liar. And she's lying, and these platforms are giving her the ability to keep lying. So I find her behavior to be beyond suspicious, highly disgusting, and I will never be a fan of her or any of this. So give her a listen in 3, 2, 1.
Come after me, call me names, I don't care. Call me what you want, go down that rabbit hole, whatever. But when you go after my family, my Turning Point USA family, my Charlie Kirk Show family, when you go after the people that I love, and you're making hundreds and thousands of dollars every single episode going after the people that I love because somehow they're in on this, no.
You know, I have to say it. I've never seen you like this.
No, this is righteous anger because this is not okay. It's not healthy. This is a mind virus. Yes, I believe in our judicial system. I do. We have a hell of a team working on this. Excuse my French. But this is not okay.
So you want to put these people back in the box where they've been creeping from?
I don't care what box you're in. But just know that your words are very powerful and we are human. My team are not machines and they're not robots. They are human. We have more death threats on our team and our side than I have ever seen. I have kidnapping threats. I have, you name it, we have it. And my poor team is exhausted. And every time they bring this back up, what are we supposed to do? Relive that trauma all over again? They watched my husband get murdered. I have no idea how I would have reacted if I was there that day. And thank the good Lord that I did not have to see that happen. But my team, they are rocked to the core. So why every single day do they have to be dragged through the mud, analyzed, hyper-analyzed?
You know,
sit in a corner and cry and be in fetal position. This is a duty to my husband and it's an absolute honor. And I will never back down. And so my message to them is to stop. To stop.
And that's what we will say here on Outnumbered.
There was an edit, too, in the middle of that video for some reason. Again, it was airing live, apparently, but there was a slight edit in it, which I found, again, a bit suspicious. Either way, that is not what a person says who really has a husband who's murdered. That's not what they say. She referred to her own life as a rabbit hole. You want to go down that rabbit hole. Strange. Why would you call your own life a rabbit hole? Why would you call the murder of somebody a rabbit hole? You would think that you too would want to get to the bottom of it. And then, of course, what does she do? She threatens, basically, to sue anybody who questions her. That our whole team, my TPUS team is all rocked to the core. What about your kids? I thought you had children. Or are they not your kids? Are they fake prop children? Which, let's face it, that happens. And they probably are. But again, she is beyond nuts. She's nuts. That is not the behavior of a woman who really loses a husband. That is not how they behave. It just isn't. And anybody, again, asking questions about it is rightfully asking questions because they're the ones with a level head on. I don't like the fact that Candace Owens is spoon bending. Let's cut to the chase. Charlie Kirk isn't dead. He was in on the entire scheme. And he was fine with that being the case. But if you're believing in Erica Kirk, then my God, I'm sorry, again, you've lost your mind. You've lost your complete ability to understand the difference between people who lie in serious emotional situations and people who tell the truth. She's clearly lying. There were no fake tears this time either. She's just chilling on the couch at Fox News, threatening to sue people while she's pushing one of Charlie Kirk's books, apparently, or some new book that's been written with his name on it, which seems a bit strange also. So he's writing what? Books from the grave? Give me a break. So Candace Owens can keep doing what she wants. I'm all for it. Any of these people can keep doing what they want, I guess. I just don't understand why people can't see through it. I think a lot of people can. I think a lot of people can see her behavior and say, yes, that's not natural because you're not acting natural because you don't host shows on other channels, on other networks when your husband's been assassinated. It's not what you do. Jackie Onassis didn't go and host NBC Nightly News after her husband was murdered. I mean, my God. It's rather obvious, isn't it, that it's completely fake? People have got to wake up to this kind of stuff. I'll tell you though, that's a book. That's actually a page that I really could not create for the I'm a Conspiracy Theorist kids book. The Business of Fake Shootings. I couldn't do it. I mean, I tried, but the AI system was like, that's a bit heavy. And it violates our terms of service and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, all right, I get it. I'll just move on to other subjects. But yeah, I'm telling you, this is exactly what a criminal does. A criminal in a situation like this, in a scam, in a lie, runs all over the place trying to explain their way out of particular situations or their involvement. She even said, as you just heard her say, if I were there when my husband was shot and killed, I don't know how I would have behaved. What do you mean you don't know? What do you mean? It's rather obvious, is it not? If a loved one is shot, your instincts, if you love that person and you're actually with that person and directly associated with them, they are in fact your spouse and you have children with said person, wouldn't you run to them and help them? What do you mean you don't know how you would have behaved? No one says that. It's not natural. That's not a natural line of inquiry, let alone an answer. And then, of course, Harris Faulkner at the end, well, we support you and blah, 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 and we echo your sentiments. Okay. Fox News is in on it. They're all in on it. This is a part of the elimination of the human mind that is continuing to exist that people have got to fight through. They've got to be able to see that all of these screens are designed to brainwash people. That is the point. You've got to turn them off. Yes, you can ignore these people, but you can also expose them as well. Again, my TPUSA family, we're all rocked to the core. They've lost copious amounts of money and viewership since that fake shooting. Since all of that took place. And the only thing that's happening is Erica Kirk is making the rounds all over the place, trying to justify her participation in whatever took place, which was clearly fake. I'm going to get off of it now, but yeah, she needs to go away. She needs to be locked up. When you fake, I mean, honest to shit, when a person on GoFundMe, okay, or Give, Send, Go, or any of that stuff, lies about an illness that they have, that they don't have, and they take money in for it, and anybody exposes them, do you know what happens to that person? Their page gets shut down, the money gets returned to all of the individuals who donated, and they go to jail because it's a crime. So, I don't know why Erica Kirk has been given a pass in all of this. I don't get it. It doesn't make her any different than a Sandy Hook parent as far as I'm concerned. I don't care if it was for a matter of national security or not. She'd still do well to stay home and stay out of the limelight. But she's not doing that. She's doubling down on the lie. And I don't know. I find it disturbing. She's odd. She doesn't look right to me. That's all. Among other things. She just flat out doesn't look right. Okay. Moving on. Ilhan Omar. She's panicking too, and rightfully so. The Somali dialogue and anti-Somali sentiment in this country has reached a full peak, I think, which is great as far as I'm concerned. Again, if they're illegal, they don't belong. If they don't assimilate, they don't belong. Pretty straightforward. And Ilhan Omar is making the rounds and losing her mind because Donald Trump is bringing her up with regularity. The DOJ is looking into her. And that, again, is exactly all that it takes in order to get a cockroach out of the ground and start scurrying around. Is all you have to do is bring them up. All you have to do is mention them. And then they start again panicking and saying things that they wouldn't say and screaming louder than usual and whatever else. I think Donald Trump's serious about getting rid of Ilhan Omar, and I'm shocked that she hasn't been gotten rid of yet, to be honest. Everybody knows she's here illegally. Everybody knows that she violated the law. Everybody knows she married her brother, engaged in whatever you'd call that, immigration fraud, among other things. I think her days are numbered. That's my 2 cents on it, and I'm glad for it. Okay. There was this too, rather interesting, I thought. Gateway Pundit, Ohio Democrat sworn into city council seat hours after arrest on sex abuse charges involving children. Well, there you have it. I'm going to play this YouTube news outlet, Channel 10, about this particular story. Again, sworn in after being arrested. Welcome to Ohio, ladies and gentlemen, in 3, 2, 1.
We start tonight with breaking news. You're looking live at the White House City Council meeting where right now Gerald Dixon, who won re-election, is being sworn in after being arrested and accused of sex crimes against minors.
Yeah, this is, as you're looking at, White House City Councilman Gerald Dixon, as we said, charged with gross sexual imposition and compelling prostitution. A live look on your right there. He was supposed to be sworn in tonight, and he is being sworn in. Right hand to God, right there, as you see it on your screen there. He has been reelected and now being sworn in again.
10 TV's Carly Dion is at that meeting tonight, and she just spoke with Dixon. He told her he still plans to be sworn in, as he's doing right now. We do have a crew there, and we'll let you know what happens.
Gross sexual imposition and compelling prostitution of minors. So he's going to be charged. He already has been charged, of course, and arraigned and what have you, but he apparently posted bail and they let him go. And then, of course, he decided to show up and take the oath. Absolutely incredible. Of course, he'll be off of that council in no time. He'll go to jail, I'm certain. And there you go. They don't make moves like that on people like that for charges like that if it isn't ironclad. They've got him dead to rights. But the gall to show up and still be like, yep, I'm going to take the oath because I won the election and that's the way that it is absolutely nuts. Now, speaking of that, and that takes us not only into this next story, but an audio clip that was sent to me by a listener of the show, and thank you for sending it. I'm going to play it in its entirety. This business, again, of online predators and the different layers of online predatory behavior against minors is astounding. And it's not only astounding and overwhelming and all of that, but it's always evolving. And it's almost impossible to catch everybody doing the horrible things that they're doing and engaging in these kinds of behaviors, certainly with the breadth of the technology applications that exist. And Cicely sent me this first one. This is from The Hill, and it was titled Wiz, which is apparently the name of this particular application, referred to as the Tinder for Kids, exposes kids to predators. Then it says Congress must act soon, or must act, period. It says the following here. An app called Wiz, W-I-Z-Z, has been making headlines lately for connecting minors with sexual predators. Many have described this app as the Tinder for Kids. It's the same purpose of pursuing profiles to find someone you like. In other words, connecting with online strangers. But unlike Tinder, the app is targeting both teens and adults. Well, it's certainly not just apps. It's just like that website, what was it called? Sniffies.com, where the former director of student services at Talawanda, who was hired momentarily, a Dr. Joseph Hall, was a part of, and attempted to meet up with a minor to have sex with him. Again, these websites, I never even knew they existed until, of course, you stumble across one or two, either in a police report or a story like this, and sure enough, it's a completely different rabbit hole. But you're chasing the same rabbit, which is terrible. It says, what's the result of this app design? It says, a 12-year-old girl meeting up with a supposed 14-year-old boy that Wiz connected her with, only to discover that the boy was an adult male who sexually assaulted her. The 8th grader being sexually abused by a 27-year-old man, then finding out she was only one of several underage girls he had groomed through Wiz. An 11-year-old girl being sexually assaulted by a U.S. Marine she met on Wiz. All of this in the last year alone, and there are many more cases. As reports of Wiz facilitating child sexual abuse continue to pile up, something must change with the app itself and more broadly when it comes to online child safety. It says just a few years back, the National Center on Sexual Exploitation urged app stores to remove Wiz on account of the rampant sexual exploitation occurring on the platform. Within 36 hours, both Google Play and Apple App Store agreed. Later on, Wiz was reinstated with what appeared to be a number of new safety tools. Now, here's the thing. You don't have to be able to have a website on your cell phone, as I'm sure you're aware, through an actual application. It can just be a bookmark that exists on the screen of your phone, and it behaves just like an app anyway. Again, the entire program has to be shut down. The people running the program have to be arrested because you're facilitating prostitution. You're facilitating underage individuals or overage individuals meeting up with underage individuals to, of course, engage in a crime. The simple fact that they're communicating about this subject is a crime, certainly in the state of Ohio. It goes on here. It says, although Wiz claims to have robust age verification, a 52-year-old man said he was able to create an account as a 15-year-old. How? Because even though the age verification tech flagged this man's profile for review, he said that Wiz moderators went ahead and approved it within minutes. This is worse than not having any age verification to begin with. Wiz made claims of safety and boasting about tools like age verification, but behind the scenes they actually directly overrode the concerns flagged by these tools. When the National Center on Sexual Exploitation shared this story, Wiz reached out to us, saying the New York Post claim were false and that the 52-year-old's account was never approved. So what did we do? We tested the app ourselves, and our 28-year-old adult employee was able to easily create an account as a 16-year-old. Wiz is currently enduring a fresh wave of bad press and it has once again made changes on paper, such as increasing its lower age limit from 13 to 16 years. Yet the efficiency of its age verification still falls short. Honestly, we are sick of this. We are sick of tech companies utterly neglecting safety until they're threatened with serious consequences, and then announcing flashily new tools as a publicity stunt while having zero intention to implement those tools properly. And of course, as they say, it's not only Wiz. They said that they've seen this across countless tech companies over the years, such as, of course, Meta, among others. The whole metaverse, pedoverse, entire digital environment that was being used for the exact same thing. It was being used to groom minors, communicate with them, and then ultimately meet up with them in an actual physical location. Yeah, the laws do have to change regarding this kind of stuff. Again, one time might be an accident, but when there's a pattern, it's time to go. It's time to shut it down. Again, even with the legislation that's been signed into law that apparently Melania Trump herself helped to build and or champion or certainly get behind and support it, having to do again with the online exploitation of minors, certainly on digital platforms. This is still happening. Just because something has been written into law doesn't mean that that law isn't going to be broken and that people aren't still going to engage in that behavior, and they certainly do. This particular clip was sent to me by a listener of the show. This is from Lavorche, if I'm saying that right, Lavorche Parish, probably, of course, Louisiana. And this is a school board meeting where the male lawyer of a female student is showing up and describing again digital images that were fake, that were created depicting this female student, again, in either sexual environments or particular body parts being exposed or what have you. And he's addressing the school board and basically saying, why would you suspend the victim, which apparently is what they did, and not the actual victimizer? But of course, this is the American school environment. This is what they do. They don't look at the entire situation objectively, leave the innocent party to basically, again, make whatever decision they'd like. Would you like to stay in school or would you like to leave and find another place to go? And then, of course, delay or not even engage in the expulsion of an actual guilty student themselves. Again, in situations like this, with crimes like this, of this nature, expulsion is remarkably easy. It's not difficult. And you should certainly bring up criminal charges against any individual who engages in such behavior against a fellow minor, or, again, just against a minor. So like I said, again, on Substack, and certainly in past episodes when it came to that teacher in Florida that Josiah Richwine sent my way, who, again, is behind bars for 135 years, why anybody would get a sentence like that instead of just putting a bullet in him is beyond me. But either way, he was given 135 years for creating AI-generated pictures and or video of actual students in the school building where he worked, along with, of course, having sex with his dog. Because why not at that stage of the game? But either way, here's the audio from this particular board meeting in this county in Louisiana, and you're going to hear what this lawyer, again, is basically reading the entire school board, the Riot Act, and rightfully so. Again, the people who sit on these boards are not the sharpest knives in the drawer. And apparently they made the wrong decision in this particular case, and they actually suspended the female student who was victimized when they should not have done that. But again, why the student would return to the school environment and why the parents would allow the female to return to the school environment is beyond me. There is life beyond school. There just is. Because what goes on in school is not reality by any stretch of the imagination. The content you're taught, the so-called rules that come down, the law, the way that people treat one another, the school environment is the only place where all of those things all coalesce into one giant bin of lies. The whole environment from top to bottom, the people in it, the way that people behave, again, the policy, the application of the policy, etc., along with, of course, all of the information. It is the antithesis of the truth. So give this lawyer a listen, again, addressing this school board in 3, 2, 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, what's going on here, I'll be quite frank, is nothing more than disgusting. We spent a lot of time, 10 minutes, talking about due process. You don't even need to talk about that here. Let's talk about the bare bone facts of what happened. You had a child. Ivy, stand up. Where you at? Stand up. That girl, her image was taken by artificial intelligence and manipulated and manufactured to be child pornography. Child pornography, sir. She went to you guys. She went to the school. She asked them for help. She was denied. She then asked to talk to her father, to call her father, because she was being made fun of. She was denied. And then they thought it'd be a good idea to put her on the bus. So here's what we know. We have a kid, undoubtedly, whose images were taken, manipulated, and manufactured of child pornography by a student at that school. The mere allegation alone should be enough to never put them on the same bus that day. This is my business. This is what I do every single day. People are charged with crimes. Many are not guilty and many are guilty. But you know what you don't do the same day? Put them in the same room. Especially after a lack of an investigation. Do you realize what you guys are about to do? Each and every one of you has kids, and your kid comes home crying because a student took her image, manipulated that image, and made it look as if she had now pubic hair in her private area. She's getting made fun of all day. She comes to you crying. And now you got to explain to her, hey, daughter, look, I'm sorry that the school, the people that are supposed to help you did not help you. They didn't do their job. And I got to punish them because they took action after the same videos and images are being shown on the bus again of her? You guys okay with that? What world are we living in now? How are you going to tell that? You're going to do that with your daughter? Your daughter gets that done to her. You guys okay with that? You know what's amazing? The district attorney here, she didn't find that Ivy was a perpetrator. They declined charges. They will not. They have adamantly said they will never charge that little girl with battery. You know why? Because it's justified. She asked for help, not once, not twice. She is the victim. And now you took her out of school and suspended her? Expelled her? And now her grades have plummeted. You took that from her. You have a chance right now to make it back. So no, I don't need due process. That alone, you have enough. It is not enough to say we investigated, but we really didn't. You investigated, what was that? You didn't talk to him. You didn't find an image. I bet you didn't. It's Snapchat. It disappears. You did that one day. But you guys want that girl to be expelled from this school in her childhood. Potentially robbed. Do you know what it's like every day to be made fun of? Do you know what it's like every day? This is how kids become suicidal. This right here. And you guys are saying it's okay. So here's the message. Guys, guess what? Create all the images you want. Tarnish someone's reputation. Destroy them. And when they retaliate, we're going to do nothing to that person. We're going to expel them. We're going to expel the victim. And you can do it again. And do you guys see what's wrong with this? I don't need due process. I need you guys. I don't care what happened with Mr. Amity. No disrespect, Mr. Amity, over the last 25 years. We're now in 2025. Things have changed. This is your chance. I know it's not the norm. I get it, right? Never in a million years you're going to buck a recommendation. I'm asking you to now. She's already been out of school enough. Her grades have plummeted on where she's now placed, and they weren't plummeted before. She is a victim. She is a victim. And ask yourself if that happened to your daughter or your daughter or your daughter, how you feel. And they get expelled because they show up to school, and all of a sudden, someone is disseminating pictures of her naked image. It's not her. And that's okay. Sorry, Ivy. I'm sorry you got expelled for this. So no, I'm not as friendly as Ben. I am disgusted with what happened. There was no investigation. And that is the new message. That's the new message we're sending here. Nothing I said is not factual. Could be a lot more. You don't even need it. Here's that. What you know is what I told you. Someone else created an image. She got made fun of all day. She asked for help not once, but twice. Then they put her on the bus. The guy does it again, which they have seen. We had to give them the pictures of what was being shown, and he wouldn't stop. So what do? That pissant fight that you saw, and she's expelled? That girl did exactly what you're supposed to do, right? Exactly what you're supposed to do. Self-defense has evolved in this world. Now there's a cyber self-defense. So ask yourself, as you do publicly deliberate in your decision, what would you do if that was your kid? What would you do? You're going to say, sorry, babe, I know you worked hard, you love school, but someone else generated a picture of you and you took action because they wouldn't and they expelled you. That's not right. I don't care what happened the last 25 years. That is not right. That is one of the biggest injustices I have ever seen in my career of what's going on right here. So what I'm asking you guys is to take action. I know it's hard. I know it may not seem like the right thing to do, but you are setting dangerous precedent by doing anything other than putting her back in school. Put her where she belongs. She didn't do anything wrong. Nothing wrong. So I respectfully ask each and every one of you to take this very seriously and remember, put yourself in your child's shoes and ask yourself, is this right?
First of all, she shouldn't be back in that building at all. Because the individuals who are working in the building and representing the building and certainly representing the district, what have they just violated? You're talking about, again, a sexual crime against a minor at the hands of another minor. So what law is that? It's a Title IX violation. And what makes it a very serious Title IX violation is the simple fact that the school, and it was apparently proven, that the school was told about the incident not once but twice, and they did nothing about it. That's where they violated Title IX. Again, schools don't know about this. Title IX is not taught at the undergraduate level to incoming teachers or wannabe teachers. It isn't discussed, and if it is, it's not discussed properly. And even if it is taught properly, and those individuals go into the environments to become a teacher, they're outnumbered when it comes to the individuals who work in the environment who know nothing about a Title IX. Because the vast majority of school employees know absolutely nothing about it. The most they've received might be a passing professional development session on it, and that's it, and then it's in one ear and out the other. The entire environment is guilty. They could lose all of their federal funding because of that one incident, and they should. This is the part of Title IX investigations, again, where it can be limited in scope, and it shouldn't be. Certainly not in that particular instance, because you have evidence of a child, again, going to the adults in loco parentis for help twice, and they did nothing about it. And then they had no problem, again, sending the minor child who was the victim in the case on the same school bus with the actual victimizer. Again, it's overwhelming, the stupidity. It's overwhelming. They are not safe environments. I'll keep screaming it. They just aren't. And they're not going to get better. They're going to get worse. Because the tools of violence have evolved to such an extent that the people inside don't even know that they exist. Hell, it's already been proven that the people who work inside of the environments are actually using those technological tools for violent means. Again, snap out of it. People need to snap out of it. It's the cycle of abuse. It's Stockholm Syndrome. I've written about all of this on Substack. I've said it here on the show 1,000 times, and you're well aware. It's the same thing over and over again. They get used to the environment. They believe, again, the victimized minors believe that there's no other environment to learn in. That if I leave the school environment, something terrible will happen to me. That feeling is the devil himself. It's the sickness that comes from being afraid of unplugging from the matrix. Because it's the devil who's keeping that rod in the back of everybody's head, right in the back of their neck, keeping them tethered to that entire brainwashing system. And when you go to reach for it, to pull it out of the back of your head, just like in the movie The Matrix, you start to feel queasy and you start to feel strange, like it's unnatural. But once you pull it out of your head and you leave permanently, you realize one thing, and everybody realizes it who leaves. You realize that you didn't need to be in that environment to begin with. And the time that you wasted in that environment, you'll never get back. So, again, find another means of educating yourself. There are a million other ways. And that particular female minor has no business going back. Not just, again, because of any retribution of any kind, but again, the students will continue to be stupid. They'll continue to talk. They'll continue to make fun of her. Again, even though she was the victim. And that's the way that is. So, again, the lawyer openly said, and he was right, this is what causes students to kill themselves. Sending her back to school will increase the likelihood of that being the case. But someone explaining to her that the school environment is by design unnatural and filled with lies, and certainly demonic, I think that goes without saying. If someone doesn't explain that to her, then pulling the cord out of the back of her head is going to be harder than it has to be, because it doesn't have to be a difficult process. It can be a smooth transition, but unfortunately, again, even that lawyer, again, working on her behalf, was advocating for her to return to the very abusive environment that she was abused in. That's ridiculous. This is also, again, why many health professionals would say, well, you need to face your fears and you need to go back into that environment. Well, those people are stupid. Same thing again with any lawyer who suggests that you go back into an abusive environment and expect it to somehow change or bend their will to your needs. Won't happen. It won't happen. You never send somebody back into an abusive environment, just like a singular individual should never go back to another individual again who is abusive. It shouldn't happen. I want to transition here because, again, this is interesting, and if government actually believes that this is a solution to such a problem, it isn't. And that's not really the reason, again, why the government of Australia, for example, in this particular story, and it's certainly a current event, is removing social media from people who are under 16 years old. They're not doing it for their safety, and they're not doing it so they pay more attention in school and whatever else. That's not why. They're removing social media from underage individuals who are, again, under 16 years old because they don't want young revolutionaries in their country. That's the real reason. Again, anytime you hear of social media being removed from particular environments, the real reason, the real foundational reason is they don't want adults to be undermined by more knowledgeable young people. They don't want that because then you have conflict. And then you have a disruption of the authoritarian state, which of course exists within school environments to say the least. School teachers get away with murder. They get away with violating Title IX. They get away with being abusive toward one sex or another or whatever else, violating their own policy, breaking their contracts. I've brought up all the certainly local stories that exist here, along with endless others that you're well aware of too. It happens all the time. But you can't have a knowledgeable minor in an environment like that and have them become more knowledgeable with the right technological tools at their disposal when they're face-to-face with an adult who's supposed to be an instructor. And in this particular case, of course, government wants to be the instructor, and they're a terrible instructor, just like they're a terrible parent. This is from the financialexpress.com. It says, will be world's first domino, quote unquote. Australia becomes first country to ban social media for kids under 16. The landmark ban will make Australia the first such country to take a step. Lawmakers have swiftly approved the step late last year, saying that the move is meant to protect children from addictive social media platforms. Again, that's always their take. We are Big Brother, we're the best parent, and we're here to tell you what's best for you. It says, of course, this could prove disastrous for their mental health, according to them, so saith NBC as well. It says over 1 million social media accounts held by children under age 16 are set to be deactivated in Australia as a first-of-its-kind social media ban imposed by the government. And it was implemented, of course, this past Wednesday. It says the landmark ban will make Australia the first such country to take that step. And it says here, quote, with one law, we can protect Generation Alpha from being sucked into purgatory by predatory algorithms described by the man who created the features as behavioral cocaine, quote unquote. Communications Minister Annika Wells told the National Press Club in Canberra last week. Julie Inman Grant, who regulates online safety as Australia's e-safety commissioner, called the country's step as a, quote, world's first domino at a recent Sydney event. With a ban going into effect, social media companies will now be required to enforce the ban. They will be liable to pay fines of up to 49.5 Australian dollars, about $32 million, for serious repeated breaches. Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, X, Snapchat, and Reddit are all set to be age-restricted under the law, according to a list shared by the e-safety commissioner. Again, how do you think that people in Australia are reacting to this? They claim, of course, the government does, that there's broad support, that a poll found that 77% of respondents were in favor of it. Sure, because you should trust government and their polling systems when it comes to their own tyrannical methods. Give me a break. It's awful. But just keep in mind, every single time you hear of one of those things, it's to crack down on dissent. It's to crack down on the truth. It's to keep people from thinking about actual conspiracies and learning about them. It's to keep people from theorizing about real conspiracies. That's the problem too. Can't have young revolutionaries, and you certainly can't have ones that are smarter than their adult counterparts, certainly in those school-related environments, let alone government itself. They don't want it, because they don't want people rising up and realizing that they've again have been victimized year after year, and that there are long-term plans in place from a lot of these governments to consistently do that, and then, of course, that leads to a shorter lifespan and 1,000 other things. But it's beyond gross, and it's not going away. Okay. I'm going to end with this. Kind of a shorter episode here, but this will take a little bit of time to explain, and I wanted to provide a bit of an update. Specifically, again, regarding the parent of the child who was apparently molested by an elementary school principal here in town. As of right now, that principal is still on paid administrative leave. And that's the status of that as far as I know. I don't know the status of the Title IX investigation itself, but what I do know is that what has actually transpired regarding the parent, the mother in this case, is beyond appalling. So let me outline it basically by starting here. During a Title IX investigation of any sort, if there's even the appearance of retaliation by any party toward the individual, again, who has filed a Title IX investigation, specifically, of course, having to do with the abuse of her own son, apparently, and I have no reason to doubt it, certainly based on the evidence at my disposal that I've been told about, and certainly have already written about before. But anytime that there was retaliation against that parent, or any untoward act or behavior that even appears to be retaliatory, that in itself violates the entire process of a Title IX investigation. And in my opinion, based on what has happened with the mother from certainly I would say the month of July on is beyond alarming. So there's essentially two separate avenues, or even I would say three. There's the behavior of the school. There's the behavior of the local police department, the Oxford Police Department in Oxford, Ohio. And then there's the overall judicial system, which we'll just say is kind of in the middle. And I'll sort of bring that up last. First, let me start with the school district itself. The school district claims to have a policy in place that essentially says that if your child is in kindergarten or first grade, then there needs to be a parent at the bus stop or wherever the bus stops for said minor child to get off of the bus in order for the bus driver to let the child off. That there needs to be an emergency contact or a recognizable on-the-record documentation, documented person with a valid identification and the whole thing present before the minor can get off of the bus, even if the bus is dropping the students off right in front of their own home, not feet from their own front door. I have personally watched this policy be violated by endless bus drivers in this school district with my own eyes. Just the other day, I was driving back into town and I was following a school bus and we stopped. Their little stop sign shoots out from the left-hand side. The doors open and two minors get off of the bus. No adults anywhere. It's obvious that they are in kindergarten. And then they just walk into a parking lot, and then they walk into an apartment building. So we're talking about, again, walking, 10, 15, maybe 20 yards into an apartment building. Not an adult in sight. I mentioned that particular scenario because when it comes to the parent, the mother in this particular case, she sends both of her children, her son, who was allegedly abused, and her minor daughter to an outside of town elementary school, but it's still within the district limits. So it's still, again, a school district school. The school where she used to send her children, or her son, where he was apparently abused, is a block away from their home. So during the summer, she openly reached out to the superintendent and said, of course, I don't want my son going back to that school if the child molester is going to be there who molested my son. And she communicated this to the superintendent in an email. The superintendent emailed back, not compassionately, and emailed back saying, I have no control over whether or not he returns given the fact that there's a Title IX investigation transpiring. First of all, that's not what you say. You don't brush it off and make it sound like it didn't happen or it's not that big of a deal. So out of the gate, he's an idiot. But he continued in his email, and he essentially said, let me know what you want to do by this particular date, because you can have your children go to this other elementary school in the district, which is outside of town, and we can arrange transportation for you to where they will be picked up at your house, and then they will be dropped off at your house. But because your children, or one of the children, is in kindergarten while the other is at least in third grade, there needs to be an adult present at around 4:30 on your property every single day to pick them up. And if you don't, well, then you're being negligent. I'm paraphrasing, but that's essentially how they view it. Keeping in mind, again, that they don't keep the same policy for everybody. So at face value, it looks like they're jerking with her. At face value, it looks like retaliation. Now, it turns out that on one particular instance, at the beginning of the year, after she agreed that that would be the case and this is what would happen, And this is, again, where the Oxford Police Department gets involved, and this is where more retaliation, again, rears its ugly head, in my opinion, certainly from a visual standpoint. She left town to a neighboring town to pick up a cell phone from a client of hers, and this woman cleans homes for a living. So you need to keep this in mind when I tell this story. She not only cleans homes for a living, but her home is clean. The inside of her home is very clean. I've seen it. I've been in it. It's a clean home. Again, you would think that that would be the case for someone who runs a cleaning business and runs their own cleaning business, and it happens to be true. It's not a pigsty by any stretch of the imagination. On top of that, she was leaving town to go meet a client of hers to pick up her own cell phone. And then when she did that, she parked her car, she entered a bar, and then she sat down at the bar, and then her client showed up with her cell phone. And she was about to be late to pick up her kids at 4:30, so her client, friend of hers, looked at her and said, "Hop on the back of my motorcycle and we'll drive back to your house, and then we'll get your kids." And she did. But her kids weren't there. Because what had happened is the bus showed up to drop her kids off, and they noticed that no one was there, even though someone was there to pick her kids up rather. But this individual was not on the designated list, apparently, even though a neighbor was supposed to be there and wasn't. So none of this is really the parents' fault. There were people that were supposed to be there and then weren't, and then when there was someone there, it wasn't a designated person, so the bus driver didn't let the kids off, even though the kids knew who the person was, told the bus driver who the person was, said that it was okay, said that they had been with this person before, and XYZ. None of that mattered. So what happened? They took the kids on the bus to the bus depot on the other side of town, where apparently the school principal and a police officer were waiting for the mother. The mother called 911 asking where her kids were. There was a police officer in a car on her own road. She was trying to flag them down. They didn't stop, and then they ended up driving away. She calls 911 again. She calls the school. She leaves messages, the whole thing, and then finally she's told that her children are at the bus depot with a police officer, and that's where she can come and pick up her kids. At which point, she does. And then, of course, she's confronted as if she's a negligent mother. You can see them start to paint the picture here. And then they continue. And then, shortly after, I want to say maybe a few weeks after, give or take, she leaves town and she leaves her children at home. Now, in the state of Ohio, you can leave your children at home. It's not against the law. There's no age restriction, none of that. The other thing that she's done, which of course happened to me when I was young, along with endless other responsible parents and children, is your parents teach your children how to stay home by themselves effectively and how to do that responsibly. You don't answer the phone. Of course, now we have cell phones, and her kids have a cell phone that they can contact their mom at any point, at any time. And mom can contact them at any point and any time. You keep the door locked. You don't go outside. You don't answer the door if somebody knocks. Leave the windows closed, the whole thing. All of this was set up for them because they had been taught all of this. And they had done it a million times before without any problem whatsoever. As mom is out of town meeting another client who's going to introduce her to another client for house cleaning, her son in the home, along with his sister, hear a noise outside of the house. Turns out that it was just a friend of one of the neighbors that lives next door. But he didn't know what the noise was, so he calls his mom. He tells his mom, here's what the sound is, here's what's going on, I don't know what this is, blah, blah, blah. And the mom says, "Don't worry, I'll be home in about 20 or 30 minutes. Don't call the police. It's okay. It's probably nothing. Just don't go outside." And then that was it. What ended up happening was the son hung up the phone and he called 911. The police showed up. Of course, mom isn't there. A neighbor shows up. And then mom is on the phone with the police and the neighbor, and the police shoo the neighbor away and then invite themselves into the home that belongs to the mother, that the mother rents, that the children are living in, when the mom isn't even there. So now they're inside the house because they think that a burglary is taking place, even though that's not the reason that the child called the police. There was no burglary. He never even said, "We're being robbed. There's a burglar. We're being broken into." He never said it over the phone to the police, to the 911 dispatcher. Now you have a female cop and a male cop walking around the inside of this mother's home. And they're making judgments that are false. One of the doors was apparently off of one of the bathroom, whatever it was, cabinet hinges or something, because the mom was fixing it. They wrote that in a police report for child endangerment. Are you familiar with Sensies? Do you know what those are? Those things that you plug into a wall that melt wax and then give off an aroma? Well, Sensies are not designed to make the wax so hot that it burns anybody. So this individual, this mother, has a Sensi, at least one or two, and it's plugged into the wall. The daughter would walk past the Sensi and dip her finger in it, and then let the wax dry on her finger and then roll it off and whatever else, and that's it. Never burned her. The female police officer witnessed the minor female child, the mother's daughter, stick her finger in the Sensi, and then wrote that in the police report, as if to say the child is burning herself, mom's not around, that's child endangerment and neglect. If this sounds ridiculous, it should, because this is a police department retaliating against a mother. Because there's an association here with the police chief, allegedly, and the principal of that school in question, who is under a Title IX investigation, which I'm certain isn't going to end well for him. Now, on top of all of that, in these police reports, which are multiple pages long, they even wrote down something like the children were eating McDonald's and there were McDonald's wrappers on the floor. So what? That's not child endangerment. But what they ended up doing, the police department, is they charged her, the mother, with 2 counts of child endangerment, one for each child, and then had her appear in court. Again, who's really endangering children? A single mother trying to work and build a business, and of course protect her children, or a school principal who's been accused of being a pedophile and a child molester. So again, as all of that is happening at the exact same time, they end up putting an ankle monitor on her ankle because they say that she violated a previous OVI charge, that she apparently had an OVI back in the spring of 2025 of this year in a separate town. And then, which was, according to her, a setup job from a former boyfriend was stalking her, something along those lines, and then called the police and then said she was leaving a bar, and then they found her, and then they trailed her, and then they pulled her over, and then that was it. Then they arrested her and detained her. She did 10 hours in jail, something along those lines. Anyway, she was charged with an OVI, and then she was on probation for that. And all of that happened before the Oxford Police Department stuff and that retaliation. So Oxford threw an ankle monitor on her, claimed that the prosecutor in the case said that he wanted her in jail, wanted CPS to take her kids away from her, and that she was a menace to society and XYZ. So they threw an ankle monitor on her in the late summer, early fall, and then told her that she couldn't drive. So now you have a single mother who runs a home cleaning business who's not allowed to drive an automobile. She's on probation, certainly in 2 areas now, two separate towns for 2 separate things. You have to call a probation officer every single time that you want to leave because you have an ankle monitor. So any single time that she needs to go to the grocery store, walk to the grocery store with both of her children, she has to call a probation officer to approve that transportation or approve, again, that movement. All of that happens, as inconvenient as all of that is, and I help her out on a number of occasions, but that's beside the point. But what they did was, which they do, which is really, really dirty, is this is where, again, the judicial system fully comes into play, and if you get caught up in it, it will squeeze you and squeeze the life out of you. They purposely set all of this up to ensure that she would go to jail. But they weren't counting on me being around to help her out and to drive her from point A to point B. And they weren't counting on a number of other things transpiring either, like Jesus being in control of the whole thing. And, well, he doesn't lose. So what ends up happening is that when they throw the ankle monitor on her, they look at her and they say, you have 2 hours to get to, actually it was less than that. You have 45 minutes to get to a neighboring town to have this ankle monitor put on you, after telling her she's not even allowed to drive. Which means, how is she going to drive 30 minutes out of town to get an ankle monitor on if she's not allowed to drive? And then, of course, that right there is the entire setup job. Because if she didn't make it in time, she would have been violating the probation, which means she would have been in jail. And they did that, of course, set that up to be that way on purpose. Of course, she calls me immediately because we already had it set up, and she says, can you give me a lift? And I said, absolutely. So I drive her, and while we are there, as she's in the room getting the ankle monitor put on her, unjustly, I might add, the Oxford Police Department calls this probation department and says, is so-and-so there? And they said, yeah, she's been here a while. She's about to be processed, and then she's about to leave. And they said, oh, okay, well, we were just checking to make sure. Again, these are people watching her like a hawk and using the flock cameras to stalk her. They've even parked, the Oxford Police Department has apparently even parked their automobiles outside of her house just to monitor her property. All taking place during a Title IX investigation of an elementary school principal who may or may not be friends with the chief of police. Helen Keller can see that this is retaliation. Anybody can see that this is retaliation. You can have your head in the sand and know that it's retaliation. It's intimidation, to say the least. So as all of that is happening, her probation in a neighboring town then is being threatened, of course, when it comes to these new quote-unquote child endangerment charges. Now, as a portion of her OVI charge in this neighboring town, she, of course, had face-to-face probation meetings, but she's not allowed to drive. So who drove her? I did. I drove her. And this was actually one of my first times, it was my first time, ever talking to a probation officer. So I sort of invited myself into their little meeting. And what happened in this meeting was astounding. The probation officer falsified a legal document in front of both of our faces. And I watched this happen. She lied about a specific stipulation that exists during this 2-year probationary period for a first-time offense. This woman's never broken the law in her life. This OVI charge came down. She never blew. She never took the test, field sobriety, none of that. They didn't draw blood, none of that. They just flat out charged her. They said, you're drunk because we think so. And then she's charged with an OVI. She was sentenced, of course, then to 2 years probation. Court, whatever it was. Court fines were waived in the whole thing, and she ended up having like a $450 fine at the Bureau of Motor Vehicles that she was actually unaware of, because on the court order, it did say all fines waived in the upper left-hand corner of this court order, which it was the court order was not easy to interpret. It wasn't easy to understand. She had a court-appointed attorney, which is a terrible decision, of course, because they're the worst of the worst, and they don't even read legal documents, let alone tell these people what's going on with them. So as all of that is happening again, we're sitting in this room with this probation officer, and this young gal is going through the motions and blah, blah, blah. And she falsifies a legal document. And on the legal document, it says that she, again, is going to hand to a judge to make a determination that because 3 months have passed since she was sentenced in the OVI thing, she hasn't taken the 72-hour alcohol education course that apparently is rather standard for people to take if they are, again, are charged with an OVI or a DUI or whatever else. But it says on the actual court order itself, it says that she was handed after her court sentencing, that she has the probationary period to take the course. Well, that's 2 years. But according to the probation officer, she said, well, that's not our policy. Our policy is that you have to take it within the first 3 months. Well, policy isn't law. So we're sitting there. She's starting to get upset, the mother, because she's seeing that what's been written down and then printed and then signed is not accurate. I take screenshots of it. I go home, and then I start looking up the law. And as it turns out, not only did the probation officer break the law, which is a 5th-degree felony, but the mother had kept all of the communications back and forth between her and the probation officer about everything that was agreed upon. And it was never stated anywhere that there was a deadline or a 3-month deadline at a particular time to take this 72-hour course. Not once, not to mention, it wasn't in the court order, which means it's not law. And then if you look it up, of course, in the state of Ohio, it clearly says, unless written specifically with a date and a beginning date and an end date for taking the OVI course, you have the entire probationary period to take the OVI course, the 72-hour course. Well, the probationary period was 2 years. Now, that day when we left, she signed up for the 72-hour OVI course to take place that next weekend. But she couldn't drive to Dayton, Ohio, an hour away, hour and a half away, whatever, to, of course, get there. So who drove her? Me. Because if she couldn't make it, she'd be in jail. Do you see how the judicial system and the so-called law enforcement system backs people into an immovable corner in order to literally destroy their family and pull children away from their own mother and a mother away from their 2 young children? They do this shit on purpose, and they do it for fun because they like fucking with people. It's that simple. It isn't complicated. It is intentional. So I drove her. She stayed. Met a bunch of people who had done far worse than her. Crashed automobiles, and they were given less than 6 months probation. Fully loaded behind the wheel. Almost killed people. 6 months probation. So there is no equal justice. It is whatever the judge feels like on that particular day when they make their ruling. That's how they operate. She finishes the course. She provides the paperwork to the probation officer, and then she goes back to the court in the outside town to then, again, provide all of this paperwork. And what do? They delay the hearing until the child endangerment charges come down in Oxford. We obtain a lawyer, a defense lawyer. She goes back for the child endangerment in Oxford. Longer story short, the OVI driving on a suspended license, even though it wasn't suspended, there was just an outstanding fee that she was unaware of. That was dropped, but she was told to plead guilty to child endangerment, 2 counts, which is a misdemeanor. And she did, because she didn't have much of a choice. The ankle monitor was removed, and she was given back her driving privileges. Then she went back to court in the neighboring town regarding the probation and the OVI stuff. And that was all basically eliminated and knocked down to a remaining 1.5 years of probation, but non-reporting probation. So she doesn't have to actually attend face-to-face. All she has to do is just call over the phone. Once a month for the next 1.5 years. That's it. So the Title IX rages on. She's on probation in 2 separate cities in the state, about 20-30 minutes apart from one another. The reporting probation is in the town where we live. The non-reporting is in a neighboring town 20-30 minutes away. And this is exactly what people would clearly describe as retaliation during a Title IX investigation, when it's obvious that CPS and or the Oxford Police Department over a year ago did not investigate the child molestation of her son at the hands of a school principal. No one's going to convince me otherwise. I'm entitled to my opinion, and that's my opinion. But the judicial system and law enforcement, I'm telling you, they are not your friends. They do not care about you or anything having to do with you, even probation officers. This probation officer looked like she was fresh out of college, complete dingbat, and just a robot. There's just nothing behind her eyes. And she broke the law. And I sent her all of the proof that she broke the law, and she actually ended up handing it to the judge, which is one of the reasons why the judge delayed one of her previous hearings. I was in the courtroom, and the judge says, "So it appears that I'm in possession of some inaccurate paperwork." And I was thinking to myself, "You're in possession of a 5th-degree felony from your own probation officer who's not standing, 10 feet away from you." And then they ended up delaying that hearing as a result. Because I caught her. And we caught her. But I caught her breaking the law. And then I emailed it to her. And I said, "You'd better fix this, or I'm going to fill out a police report for you falsifying a legal document that's going to be used in a legal hearing." I scared the shit out of her, hopefully. And it should have scared the shit out of her. Probation officers are supposed to dot their I's and cross their T's and not just throw things into a document that a judge is going to read that are inaccurate. So all of that I just described is everything that's been taking place. There's been a little more, but that's essentially it. I'm not keeping anything out. That's basically it. But all of that has basically been going on the entire time since the end of July and August. That's a lot for any mother to handle. It's a lot for children to handle. It's a lot for me to handle. But I'm glad that I was there to help, because she'd be in jail and her kids would be in the hands of government. And government, as I've said, and as you know, is the worst parent that exists on the face of the planet. One more retaliatory move that occurred, which I left out, my apologies. When she was charged with child endangerment after the police were there at her home, and the female and the male cop walked around on the inside of her house just writing down anything that they could, that one of the towels was off the rack. I mean, it was like stupid shit like that. They waited 3 days approximately before they actually gave her the citations for child endangerment. And they gave her the citations at 11:30 at night on a Tuesday. If that's not retaliation and intimidation, I don't know what is. So it rages on. But at the end of the day, God wins in things like this. And the godless lose. And they'll always lose because they're stupid and they just don't know it. There are forces here that are working against them that they cannot comprehend. Yeah, people can make mistakes. Yes, they can not think about particular scenarios and X, Y, Z and whatever else. Not everybody has forethought. Clearly, some people don't even have an inner monologue, as we've discussed here on the show, which is bizarre to me, but it exists. And again, a lot of people just can't play out particular situations in their head to figure out what might happen if this happens or what might happen if that happens. But make no mistake, law enforcement supports the school districts in America. School districts support law enforcement in America. The judicial system and even state law supports all of them as well. They can be difficult forces to go after, but not if they break the law. Again, a lot of this deception could have easily been put to bed the moment that, again, any parent, regardless of where they live or whatever the situation is, that the moment that they hear or suspect child abuse, that they again confront their children. And she was smart enough to confront her child. And again, her child is a truth-telling kid, which means a predator picked on the wrong kid. But the moment that something like this is known, that's when you have to go to the police immediately. Because a police report has to be filled out immediately, because that's a paper trail. And that's a paper trail that's very difficult to hide. You can hide it. Certainly the most unethical would hide it, but that's why you have to go to the police. Certainly when it comes to school officials, do not leave it up to Child Protective Services. Do not leave it up to a therapy session. Do not leave it up to anybody else. It has to be an immediate police report. Even if the police department is corrupt, you still fill it out. And then, of course, if they're corrupt and you fill it out and they take it, go to the sheriff's department and explain to them on the record what you've done, because you're just covering your bases. Again, it's easy to say outside of the fact, but when someone is in it, experiencing it for the first time, not everybody's thinking that way, and not everybody's thinking that clearly to cover all of their bases, to make sure, again, that the guilty parties are all held accountable in such a situation. So I'll keep you updated in the future if I hear anything else, which I'm certain I will. And I'll leave it there. Ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you for listening as always. Have a great weekend. 3 more shows here before the end of the year, and I'll catch you on Monday. Peace. Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.